aboard. This is Maritime Viewpoints on Marino World Online. I am Lynn Bacani. My guest for today is a proud Filipina, a licensed psychologist who has developed a program aimed to take care of the mental health of our seafarers. The Chief Operating Officer of Well at Sea, Ms. Gisa Paredes. Welcome to the program, Ms. Gisa. Glad to have you on the program.
Hi, Ms. Lynn. Thank you for having me. And hello sa lahat ng nanonood.
So where are you from, Ms. Gisa?
Where am I from? Yeah, I grew up in Manila. So I've always been a city girl my whole life.
Of course, we're so proud of you because we know that a Danish company is behind this Well at Sea program, and you're a proud Filipina, as I said. You developed a special program for our seafarers. So please tell us about Well at Sea program, and how did you know about the seafaring industry?
Oh my, okay. Well, maybe we'll start with how I learned about the industry first. It was really by chance. I was supposed to leave the country and take another master's degree abroad, but the funding didn't come through. And back then, I was working with my colleague. He's a Danish businessman in the Philippines, and he had a platform. Okay, and he has actually a medical background, so they created a platform with the intention to make it to help people with their health. I think that's how I put that. So when I didn't go to school, he said, well, there are some people that we're kind of talking to. Why don't we go to Singapore and talk to them? So we went over to Singapore, and as they say, the rest is history. We met with our first client there. It was really about, what is this team all about? What can you do? They put me on an FSRU ship, and that was my first really like encounter to the industry. I got to know the living environment of the seafarer. I understood how the ship was working. They took me everywhere, all around the ship, under the hot Singapore sun. I was wearing a boiler suit, the hat, the safety shoes, everything. So that was quite the experience. And then when I left Singapore and came back to Manila, they said, well, it was a nice meeting. Why don't you create something for us? And so that was it.
So how would you describe the seafaring profession back then?
Well, what I saw, and at least what I was being told, was that when it came to medical, at least their PEME, when it came to the medical aspects, there were certain areas of concern that they were seeing from the seafarers, meaning common diseases were the likes of hypertension. Seafarers were having problems like UTI, they were having gallstones, things like that, because they were dehydrated. Seafarers in the engine room were not using the toilets as often as you would like them to, and so this was bringing about some sort, diseases when they would come back home. Okay? So that was like those were areas of concern. And what I was seeing from the seafarers, of course, was how they were living, the uniqueness of that situation, especially when you take a look at, how they live in their cabins, their day rooms, how they interact with each other. That was all very interesting for me. So the challenge became, how do you now get them to become interested in their health? Because I think when you tell a seafarer, let's do something around your wellness, the first reaction is, so are you going to make me exercise? And knowing that as a challenge, you would have to now think, okay, if that's how they think about it, how do I introduce other concepts, other ways in which they can say, oh, that's what you meant, and this is how I can take care of myself.
When you say mental health, well, is that a disease? Are we talking about mental disorder? So what do you think about this mental health? What is mental health from a psychologist perspective?
Okay. Yeah, so mental health, as defined by the WHO, is a state of well being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her own community. So that is the definition of the WHO. So if you take a look at this definition and you break that down further, we see that mental health is seen in our abilities. What are our abilities? We're able to move our bodies. We can lift things. We can walk. We can run. Those are physical abilities. So mental health is present in your physiology, your biology. Okay. And then it also talks about how we can work productively and fruitfully. And when we talk about producing things, when we dream, when we have goals, that comes from our thoughts, our psyche, right? That's our psychology now. And then in the last part of the definition, they talk about making a contribution to the community. And that's a social aspect of mental health. So is it just a disease? No, that's what we call mental illness. And treating mental illness actually does not promote mental health, right? So mental health is really looking into the well-being of all of these aspects. How are we in our biology, our thought processes, and the way that we socialize with other people. Are our connections well? When we say, are you really communicating well? That's also an aspect of mental health, right?
Because we are now in the pandemic, of course, mental health issue is really a concern of the global shipping. So how does your program help our shipping industry? Of course, especially our seafarers on board.
Okay. Yeah, so Well at Sea is a full service implementation solution that uses gamification through an online platform that seafarers can access. On the platform, seafarers can monitor their own health, they can get points, and they can take on challenges like meditations, exercises, team activities, and sessions that are geared towards three main goals in this industry. Which first goal is to increase mental resiliency. The second is to improve physical strength. And the last one is to also enhance socialization. Because we know that with the dawn of the internet, the internet is also a double-edged sword, right? We know that with the internet, people can tend to isolate in their cabins. A lot of the problems also come through the internet. So what we want to do in Well at Sea is to be able to encourage that people come together, that they talk more, that crew members can kind of get a feel of how another person is doing based on how they're observing each other, right? Because the problem with isolation is you don't know when someone's having a problem, and sometimes it's too late because maybe you didn't get to talk to that person too much, you didn't really know what was going on, they isolate in their cabins all the time. And yeah, sadly, things can happen also. So the program was designed to be able to accompany the seafarer on his journey while, allowing flexibility around activities that an individual or the group can tackle together. So essentially, it's able to address two things, which is safety within teams and individual growth and well-being. And the premise of the program is that health can be taught, habits can be developed, organizational culture can spread into remote teams, and positive experiences help us develop resources that we can use in all aspects of our lives.
So, Ms. Gisa, what are the signs of mental illness and what do you consider a severe case?
Okay, so the signs of a disorder can basically be summarized into four Ds, letter D. The first D being distress. Distress is described as having unpleasant feelings that may seem overwhelming. Okay, for some people, it's very distressing if, let's say, Your anxiety is so high, you can no longer function. Meaning, it's so distressing, I cannot sleep. It's so distressing, I cannot stop crying. I don't know why I'm still crying. Okay? It's so distressing that I can't seem to stop cleaning. I can't seem to, nothing is making me feel like safe. Nothing is making me feel like I've done enough. So that can become distressing already to the person, meaning they can't seem to stop what is going on. Okay, so um, these emotions become distressing when they get in the way of our daily living and how you react to other people. Okay? So some examples of distress would be when we have physical symptoms like we're constantly shaking, the headaches, we're feeling tired all the time, or there's like some sort of fatigue, there's loss of appetite, I don't want to eat, or for the opposite naman, they like to eat a lot and they can't seem to stop. That can also be quite distressing. Okay? Um, as I mentioned, there can be excessive crying, there can be grief, wherein they can't seem to let that go, insomnia, guilt, excessive guilt and shame, and so forth. Okay. The second D is what we call dysfunction, and it is defined as abnormal or impaired functioning on the biopsychosocial aspects. Okay, so earlier we talked about what mental health is and how that's present in our biology, our psychology, and our social relationships. Now, if there is a dysfunction in the biology, that would perhaps be in the brain, meaning there's a misfire in the chemicals. Okay, that's why for some people it is very much required to take medications. That's what our psychiatrists are for. Okay? Um, in the psychology, there's a dysfunction again in the misfire. They're unable to stop the thoughts, the sadness, and so forth. Okay. Um, Other forms of dysfunction that may appear in the biology, sometimes it's like catatonia or a nervous tic that they can't seem to stop because, again, there is a misfire in the brain. The third D is deviance, and this refers to any behavior that may differ from what is considered appropriate or typical. Okay, so this is seen in antisocial tendencies. You see them rebelling or breaking rules, but kind of to an extreme. Okay? And it may also be observed in thoughts and behaviors of individuals with clear physical disabilities. And then the last D is what we call danger, and this involves violent behavior that may be directed towards the self or others. Okay? And in this case, it is absolutely crucial to take the person to a licensed professional for immediate help if there are signs of danger.
So, Ms. Gisa, your program is already implemented in many of our shipping companies for their seafarers. So, please tell us about your program implementation on this specific program. Well, let's see.
Okay, so we're working with some of the largest shipping companies today, ship owners and ship managers alike. And basically, we have been able to implement this on more than 350 ships, and more than 10,000 seafarers are using this today, 7 different fleets. It's quite simple, I would say, the way that we implement this program, because, like I said, it works on a digital platform that they can access on board the ships. Now, the Well at Sea team is here to be able to accompany them and give them activities that can help enhance the 3 main goals, which are mental resiliency, physical strength, and socialization. So we introduce things like team rituals. We also highlight the need for psychological first aid. We teach them things like basic counseling techniques. We show leaders how to guide the conversations if they want to learn more about their crew. Uh, I guess in a way, I would say that it's not just about telling them, oh, why don't you guys throw a party and spend time together? I think a lot of ships already do that. And a lot of the socialization activities have a lot of barbecues, they have dinners together. But I think we take it a level higher in what we create as team rituals and kind of guide them in having deeper, meaningful conversations with each other.
So according to your experience, to your data, what mental disorder are common to our seafarers, and what cases have you encountered so far?
Well, then it's kind of hard to comment on that right now because Well at Sea actually does not, we are not a hotline or a helpline. So therefore, we do not take in distress calls.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, we are there, however, on the prevention aspect.
Mhm.
Okay, so when it comes to mental illnesses, there are helplines that can handle that. But in the future, we do see that the Well at Sea platform will be able to capture the mental health states of seafarers on board, such as being able to see if they are experiencing fatigue, if they have some sort of stress, if they are increasing in mindfulness. So there's also a positive area to this, right? We're not just looking at the disease, we also want to see, um, because the hypothesis really is that by doing the Well at Sea program, you are increasing in your mindfulness, you're increasing in your self regulation activities, meaning you have more awareness of the self. You're able to control your emotions, you have better awareness of your emotions, and therefore you can extend this sense of well being in your mental health, in your social relationships, and so forth. Yeah.
Are you designing the program depending on the nationality or culture of the seafarers?
Not at all. The program was made for various nationalities. I think perhaps what we're learning is that, from time to time, we have to change the way that we communicate to see how it will appeal to the different nationalities. Maybe that's what it is. So we have about 16 different nationalities that we're handling at any given time on ships sailing everywhere.
How is social media affecting the mental health and well-being of our seafarers on board? Before you answer that, Miss Lisa, we'll just take a short break. Maritime Viewpoints will be right back.
What if I tell you that KSIM Connect has become a reality? It is the cloud-based ecosystem for maritime education and training, where Kongsberg provides simulation and services to all members. As an instructor, my main goal is to educate and train seafarers to acquire skills promoting safety, sustainability, and efficiency at sea. At KSIM Connect, I can efficiently manage my simulators, my exercises, and my students. In the exercise archive, I can store my library of exercises, and if I want, collaborate and share them with my colleagues or others in the global community. KSIM Connect enables me to give students access to cloud simulation, so they can train anytime and anywhere while learning at their own pace. In addition, I can explore the library of models and exercise areas, download or subscribe those that fit the learning objectives. And I can even order spare parts or a service visit if needed. Kongsberg has started to create the future of maritime education and training by creating the community where instructors can find news, explore and download available simulator models, distribute or share exercises that fit the curriculum. Imagine using KSIM Connect to integrate our simulators in the same virtual exercise environment, enabling students to train and interact together. It doesn't matter whether you're in Singapore, Australia, or in the United States. As long as you're online, you are part of the knowledge-sharing community. Kongsberg is shaping the future of maritime education and training by creating the community. Let's continue building this community together for the benefit of ourselves and the entire maritime training industry. Join KSIM Connect today.
Mariana Academy of Maritime Studies. Full STCW assessment for seafarers. One-stop shop. Unique with mapped up bridge. Mariana Academy of Maritime Studies stands firm on its commitment on training and assessment despite challenges of the pandemic. We're back on the program. You're watching Maritime Viewpoints on Marino World Online. Our guest, Ms. Gisa Paredes, the COO of Well at Sea. Ms. Gisa, how is social media affecting our seafarers, particularly on their mental health, given their, the situation on board?
I think that with the dawn of social media, we know that for seafarers, when they access the internet, social media can kind of drive a lot of information, maybe sometimes too much information to a person that can lead to stress. Okay. Now, the way that we interact with social media, and that's why we also talk about cyber wellness and how that's important, and how we also need to be aware of our emotions when we're using social media, is quite crucial. Because when we're not aware of the way that we're feeling when we're taking a look at something, this can lead us to higher stress or perhaps even like poor mental health. Okay? So I think for seafarers today, when it comes to social media, there can be elements about social media that can be stressful, but when handled appropriately, it can also help them connect to the right things. I hope that makes sense.
So what would you advise our seafarers who are now stuck at sea, who are in extended contracts because of crew change crises, travel restrictions? How do you help our shipping companies in taking care of our seafarers during this very difficult times?
So, okay, with the continued uncertainty, it is realistic to expect high stress. Now, the question might be, can stress lead to a mental disorder? Okay. Now, not everyone reacts to stress the same way. You might be on board a ship and experiencing the exact same thing as your colleague, but you're not as affected as that other person. Because this is because some of us have a genetic predisposition and behavioral aspects that make us respond to stress in certain ways. Okay, so if you imagine a person having a predisposition that is one layer of tissue and another person having three layers of tissue, if you pile rocks on each of them, the person with one layer might break faster than someone who has three layers. Okay? I hope I'm making sense. So stress, therefore, can lead to a mental disorder like depression or anxiety. So what would I say to the seafarers that are out there that are experiencing this? I know for a fact that what they're facing isn't easy. Okay? Um, but wellness also begins with self-awareness, right? And in knowing, or perhaps in having that awareness that something might be wrong with their situation, whether that's mentally, physically, socially, you know, to be able to speak up about it, to be able to reach out towards the help that is provided to them, and just to not stay silent about it. On the other hand, if you are observing someone who may be going through something and you don't know what to say to them, just try to reach out and ask them if they're okay. Because I think that the stigma of mental health is also in the fear of not wanting to talk about it with the person who you think might be going through something, and then the person going through something being ashamed in having to say that I am experiencing difficulty right now. So again, if you're the person on the end who is struggling, don't be afraid to say that you're having a hard time. And if you're the person who is observing someone else who, you know, they're not their usual selves, I encourage you to reach out, to ask them how they're doing, to have short conversations with them, and maybe even try to distract them with something meaningful, meaning a meaningful activity, right? You can do something together, you can, you know, play games, you can maybe talk, watch a movie. Those are all meaningful activities.
Miss Gisa, just curious about the designing of the program. You designed the program together with the Galaxy team during the pre-pandemic. So have you done some adjustments because of this pandemic we are experiencing now? Is this a special case?
Actually, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Well at Sea program, how do you say this? The Well at Sea program, because of its preventive mission, was already making these resources available to the seafarer before the pandemic. Now, when the pandemic hit, it became even more evident why the content on Well at Sea was important. We already had things like psychological first aid ready for the seafarer. We just hadn't launched it. So when we all went into lockdown and the seafarers could not go home, um, we immediately put together a COVID care package. That just meant that we took existing content, we moved it around a little bit, and then we packaged it so that the seafarer would feel okay, COVID times, what do I need to like look at when it comes to my health? We made nice PowerPoint presentations so that they could read it together. We um, we sent them video content, we taught them challenges, we taught them activities, and so forth, right? So the COVID care package was really meant to be able to help them now on mental health issues. And like I said, psychological first aid. Because when the world went into lockdown, we already knew that access to hospitals, to medical professionals, to mental health professionals was scarce. That the seafarer was not going to be able to have immediate access to them when they needed it. So, as a mental health professional, I thought, okay, we're now in a crisis. What do we do when we're in a crisis? We need to equip the people on board the ships with the skills on psychological first aid. They have to learn how to respond to one another, become first responders. Because you cannot wait until it gets very bad for the person to call a helpline. When you are on board that ship and you can already see that someone is showing signs of distress or any of the 4Ds, you can administer psychological first aid. And that was really my hope, to be able to get them to respond to one another, to practice it together, And a lot of the feedback that we were getting from the captains and the crew were, psychological first aid helped us build trust. It helped us talk about things that we didn't realize we needed to talk about. And that in itself was so, I would say it was very comforting to hear this from the seafarers. And some of the ships would write to me and say, because of these activities, those who were now way overdue to go home, they had become so extremely temperamental, they had calmed down. They had learned to just regulate their emotions towards the situation. The ship became a happier ship. The team was able to work better together, despite the uncertainty, of course, of not knowing when they were going to go home. And we know that these challenges are very real, so we're not taking that for granted at all. But what we're saying is that even in moments of difficulty, we can come together as a team. And WellAtSea is here to show teams how to do this even when they're so far away.
So this is much on realization that there should be a continuous mental health program for our seafarers. Your thoughts, Miss Lisa?
That is correct, Ms. Lynn. There really has to be. When we talk about prevention, there are three areas of prevention. So the first line of prevention is, they're not, sorry. The first line of prevention is you are in complete health. You are 100% okay. And at that level, you want to be able to already build on self-awareness, psychoeducation, so that you move them towards growth. Because the more you learn about yourself, the more you learn about psychology and how other people work, then that kind of moves you towards a higher level of empathy towards yourself and towards others. Okay? The second level of prevention is um, there are signs of illness, or from time to time we may get sick, but we're still preventing it from perhaps um, becoming too big, I would say. So for those who have experienced depression before or anxiety before, this would be the second level of prevention. Because when we experience depression or anxiety, it is highly likely that it will happen again. But what we want to prevent is that they now deal with it better. So it's now about the coping, that you have tendencies towards depression, and we all do as human beings. You have tendencies towards anxiety, and that's okay. But how can we deal with that better? And dealing with that better really comes with doing the work, raising your self-awareness. So how did I do today? How did I interact? Do I keep a gratitude journal? How can I look into my positive emotions, and how can I grow that? That's all preventive. Okay. We also know that mindfulness-based cognitive techniques are known to also improve the physical states of individuals. So yes, we do have to be able to focus on prevention and to have a mental health program that can follow the seafarers even when they're far away, right? Because when they're home, what tends to happen? They're bombarded with webinars because now we're in a pandemic. Or if it's not a webinar, then they're required to go to the office. They have to attend this, they have to attend that. But those are all one-time events. And then they join a ship, and then it becomes a redundant work life. You wake up, you work, you go to sleep. You wake up, you work, go to sleep. And then you forget everything that you did in the webinar or the seminar that you attended live. So when we talk about mental health programs and really being able to accompany the seafarer, what you're really encouraging to do is to put theory into practice every day. And that's what WellAtSea does for our seafarers. We make it fun in ways that we challenge them. Sometimes we'll call it inter-vessel challenges, and we'll say, okay, this challenge, we're going to make it fun. Just dress up in costumes. Okay? But there can also be something very serious. We'll say, let's talk about mental health. We want you guys to come up with solutions amongst your team.
From the title itself, Well at Sea. So Does your program only applies to seafarers while on board, or have you extended the services? Like, especially during the pandemic, we have this when they disembark, they undergo this quarantine period. Do you have
Yes.
a program for?
Yes. So, Ms. Lynn, the Well at Sea program is available to crew that are on leave, as we call them. So when they go home to their families, they can also access the platform. There are really no limitations to this because the platform itself allows you to monitor your health. So you know how a lot of us have smartwatches, we have smartphones. We can actually sync the data. So the number of steps that you're making, if you're on a weight loss track, things like that. So it can be quite fun. They can put in more information into the platform. So that's what we call for the on-leave crew. Now, for those that are in quarantine, yes, Well at Sea actually put together a quality quarantine program for the Filipino seafarers who, as we know, are in facilities. Okay, and we did this in the third quarter of 2020 because we were learning more and more that seafarers were saying quarantine feels like we're in jail. And we also know that the facilities in the Philippines, some of the quarantine rooms don't even have a view, or they have a window and then it's facing a wall. And we know that human beings need the view of nature, they at least need to be able to see sunlight. So, quality quarantine, we created like a 14-day plan that a seafarer could be encouraged to do. He didn't have to do it. But we figured if you create a plan and you show him a schedule or her a schedule, then he or she should be able to say, I like this, I will incorporate these certain things to enrich the experience of being inside a room for 14 days. And what we see from the quality quarantine program is that it has helped seafarers feel like, at least there's something to do while they're there. There's something new to focus on instead of just finishing all the shows on Netflix and, lying down and so forth.
So how do you assess the success of the program?
So the way we assess the success of the program is by taking a look at the engagements, right? But we also look, we also work hand in hand with the companies that we're working with, and generally there are four main goals that ship owners and ship managers are looking at. Okay, so the first goal is on medical claims and illnesses, of course. So we want to know if has there been a reduction in people getting sick on board. So we take a look at the data of the client, and then we also survey our crew. And what was interesting to see in one of our pilots was that we asked the crew about medical illnesses, and they said that there had actually been a reduction on illnesses on board. And then when we took a look at the data from our client side, they said that the reporting from the ships had actually also lowered. So that would be one. Another area is, of course, engagement. So are the crew interacting more with each other? Do they feel like they belong? Because a lot of, like I said, the problems are isolation, bullying, things like that. So do they feel like they are valued? Do they feel like they're part of a team? Do they feel like they like the people that they're working with? That can also be measured through our platform. And then we look at employee retention. Would you basically sail with the same group um, with a wellness program like this in place? And we see that more than 90% of seafarers find that a wellness program makes them feel valued, makes them feel seen, makes them feel cared for. And it does affect the way that they choose their employer. So helping on the employee retention. Okay. The last aspect is on physical health states. So it's really, has your physical state of health improved, right? So do you feel stronger? Have you changed anything? Have you gained insight on your well-being? And that is collected through various ways. Either we're able to see that and capture that on the platform to see if health states have improved in the seafarer, and of course they're self-reporting. Then they tell us through qualitative data that some of them have stopped smoking completely. A lot of them have started losing weight and so forth. Yeah. So again, we take a look at the various those various aspects based on the goals of the ship owners and ship managers, and as a whole, the Well at Sea program is able to collect data and take a look at the trends on the engagement and the usage of our program.
Miss Gisa, if I may ask, how young are you? And what keeps you doing what you're doing?
Well, I'm in my 30s.
I think it's stressful to manage other stress and anxieties.
Yeah, well, I think what keeps me going is that I've always held on to just this one mission, which is to make health accessible. Because our health systems in the Philippines alone are not enough to take care of the multitude of Filipinos. So, as a health professional, it's always been, I guess, at the core of me to be able to help other people help themselves, right? Because I think we think that only the health professional can help us. But we have to realize that we have the capability of helping ourselves and that the health professional can guide us along the way. And if we think this way and if we make health accessible, we can actually reduce the onset of illness in our country. The same way that we are trying to curb the pandemic in our country, I would say it's the same with mental health. When more people become aware, when more people start talking about it, when more people ask for help, when more people practice skills in empathy, there can be mental health everywhere. People can live together in society. There can be a better world. So I think that that's really what keeps me going. The the mission to make health accessible and to really empower other people to find that healer inside themselves. Because we all have a healer inside ourselves.
Thank you so much for your time and thoughts, Miss Gisa. Miss Gisa Paredes, the Chief Operating Officer of Well at Sea.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for watching Maritime Viewpoints on Marino World Online. See you again next Saturday. Stay safe.